What movie traumatized you as a kid? Watership Down. Watership Down is definitely at the top of the list for traumatizing childhood movies. It's one of those films that starts off innocently enough, a group of rabbits leaving their home, but it takes a dark turn so fast that you barely see it coming. I'll never forget watching that as a kid, expecting cute bunny adventures and instead getting a full-on nightmare fuel. The false advertising of dads. My dad told me it was going to be a cute movie about bunnies. He didn't prepare me for the carnage, the blood, the screaming. I'm still thinking of suing him for false advertising, honestly. What kind of parent tricks their child like that? It was brutal. I don't think I've looked at rabbits the same way since. Night of the Living comedy. My older brother told me that Night of the Living Dead was a comedy. I was 8 years old and believed him. Spoiler alert, it was not a comedy. It was terrifying. For years after that, I was convinced zombies were going to come get me in the middle of the night. I can still hear the groaning from that film whenever I think about it. The Midnight Cowboy mix-up. This one still makes me cringe. My sister convinced my grandmother that Midnight Cowboy was a Western, and she took us all to see it. I was way too young to be watching that, and honestly, none of us knew what we were in for. I can't even remember how old I was, but I just remember feeling awkward and confused the entire time. Definitely not a Western. Now it's your turn. What movie traumatized you as a kid? Drop it in the comments, and let's see if your pick hits someone else in the feels. Also, don't forget to hit subscribe for more community threads like this. You never know what nostalgia trip we'll take next. Watership Down or WW Do? For years, I thought Watership Down was some WWE submarine movie. Something about the title just gave me that impression. Then I learned it was about rabbits, and I thought, oh, it must be a cute little nature film. Nope. After seeing so many people mention how traumatizing it was, I decided to never watch it. Whether it's about submarines or rabbits, I'm steering clear. A tale of rabbits and horror. Watership Down really is something else. It's about a group of rabbits who leave their home, led by a young visionary rabbit, but the journey they go on is anything but cute. The movie takes you to some really grim, dark places. It's actually based on a classic novel by Richard Adams, and while it's animated, it's not for kids. There's even a less grim version, a miniseries on Netflix, but the original will forever be in my mind as a source of childhood trauma. Michael Jackson's Thriller. Not a movie, but Michael Jackson's Thriller did a number on me as a kid. I was around 6 when I saw it, and that werewolf transformation scene? Yeah, that made sure I was terrified of the dark for the next 8 years. I can still remember hiding under the covers, trying to convince myself it wasn't real, but that werewolf was burned into my brain. The Curse of the Werewolf. Same here. The werewolf scene in Thriller absolutely destroyed me. There was something about the way his face transformed, the way his eyes glowed. It's the stuff of nightmares. I avoided anything with werewolves for years after that. Arachnophobia. Spider in the popcorn bowl. That's all I need to say. Arachnophobia left me scarred for life. Now I check everything: cereal boxes, popcorn bowls, shoes, lamps. It's exhausting, but better than having a surprise 8-legged guest show up. I'm forever on edge, thanks to that movie. A lifetime fear of spiders. That movie messed me up too. I've had a fear of spiders ever since. It didn't help that I lived in an area where spiders were common, so every time I'd see one, I'd flash back to that film. It installed a permanent spider phobia in me, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. Etc. E.T. scared me so badly as a kid that I couldn't sleep for weeks. That scene in the closet? The way he hid among the toys? Terrifying. I had a closet in my childhood bedroom that looked just like the one in the movie, and every time I needed to use the bathroom at night, I would run as fast as I could, terrified that E.T. would pop out and grab me. Ed's closet scene. Same here. That closet scene did me in. My bedroom had a cupboard just like it, and I would bolt to the bathroom, terrified that E.T. would jump out and make that creepy groaning noise. It was enough to make me scared of my own room for years. A lifetime of E.T. fears. E.T. has become a running joke among my friends, but it's still one of my biggest fears. As a kid, I used to spend weekends at my aunt's house, and she loved playing that movie for me. At first, I liked the thrill, but then it just flipped. The closet scene, the river scene where he's pale and white, and the bathroom floor? No, thank you. I was too scared to tell my aunt that I hated it because she thought it was one of our special bonding moments. Years later, after I graduated high school, she gifted me the original VHS, thinking it would be a nice keepsake. I still don't know what to do with it. Signs and sleepless nights. Signs. The video footage of the alien walking past the camera haunted me for years. Even now, I can't watch that movie without feeling like that alien is going to pop up around every corner. It's burned into my mind. Fear of doorways. For me, it was the scene with the alien fingers creeping out from under the door. After seeing that, I couldn't stand with my back to any door for years. Every time I saw a door slightly cracked, I half expected an alien hand to reach out and grab me. The Achilles Terror. Pet Cemetery. The scene where the baby pops out from under the bed and cuts the person's Achilles? That one got me. For years, I couldn't stand next to my bed without feeling nervous. Even now, that scene flashes through my mind whenever I'm in a dimly lit room. It's one of those childhood fears that just sticks with you. My Girl and the Heartbreak. My Girl still makes me cry to this day. Watching that movie as a kid was one of the first times I really understood what loss felt like. It was heartbreaking, and I can still feel that sadness every time I think about it. Where are his glasses? Where are his glasses? He can't see without his glasses. That line absolutely wrecked me. Even now, as an adult, just thinking about that scene brings tears to my eyes. It's such a gut-wrenching moment. Signs, Aliens, and Lasting Fears. Signs is still one of the scariest movies I've seen. That quick glimpse of the alien walking past the camera haunted me for years. Every time I saw an open field or a cornfield, I half expected to see an alien lurking in the distance. It's one of those scenes that never leaves you. To The Never-Ending Story? The Never-Ending Story is a movie that still haunts many of us, especially that heart-wrenching scene with Artax sinking into the mud, overcome by sadness. It's one of those childhood moments where you realize not everything has a happy ending. I remember being glued to the screen, tears rolling down my face, while Atreyu desperately tried to save him. It was more than just a horse. It was the loss of hope. Artax or Onyx? Funny thing, I always thought his name was Onyx. It wasn't until years later when I rewatched it with subtitles that I realized it was Artax. That scene just sticks with you, and it's amazing how many of us have that exact moment burned into our memories as the saddest thing we ever watched as kids. It was the first time I think I felt the weight of sadness in a movie, especially as a child. The Grudge. Oh man, The Grudge was something else. I was 13 when I watched it at a friend's birthday party. What a mistake. I had nightmares for years after that. Every shadow looked like that creepy ghost, and falling asleep was a struggle. Even today, I sometimes get a chill thinking about it. The way the ghost moved, the unsettling sounds. It was more than a horror movie. It was a psychological trap. A nightmare that stayed. I can relate. The Grudge was one of those movies that didn't just scare you while you watched it. It haunted your dreams. I watched it when I was way too young, and I don't think I slept right for months. It's not just the ghost. It's the way the film toys with your sense of security. No room, no corner, feels safe after seeing that movie. The Land Before Time. The Land Before Time destroyed me as a kid. Losing Littlefoot's mother felt like losing a part of myself. My mom passed away when I was only 3 years old, so watching Littlefoot grieve hit way too close to home. I couldn't handle it. That movie stayed with me for years and definitely shaped how I dealt with loss. I couldn't even talk about it without tearing up. Don Bluth's Trauma Collection. Don Bluth had a way of pulling at our heartstrings with his films. I mean, The Secret of NIMH, An American Tail, The Land Before Time, and All Dogs Go to Heaven. He wasn't just making kids' movies, he was making emotional landmines. Every one of his films had a moment where you were left sitting there, stunned, wondering why you thought watching a kids' movie would be fun. An American Tail hit different. An American Tail was one of those movies that didn't just make me sad, it made me angry. I watched it with my son last year, and it hit him just as hard. I could see the same reaction in his eyes. When we got in the car afterward, he just blurted out, "What kind of kids' movie was that?" I haven't even told him about All Dogs Go to Heaven because I know he wouldn't be able to handle it. The Heartbreak of a Song. That song from An American Tail absolutely wrecked me every time. As a kid going through my parents' messy divorce, It was like the song spoke to the sadness I couldn't express. It was more than just a cartoon. It was a reflection of how I felt, and every time I hear it now, it brings back all those memories of that tough time in my life. The dark truth behind Ducky. As if The Land Before Time wasn't heartbreaking enough. Learning that the child who voiced Ducky was shot to death just before the movie was released. It adds a whole new layer of sadness to it. It's hard to believe that such a cheerful and iconic character came from someone who faced such tragedy. It feels like the weight of that loss is woven into the movie itself. A tragic goodbye. What's even more heartbreaking is knowing that the actor who voiced Charlie in All Dogs Go to Heaven had to record that emotional goodbye scene after learning the little girl who voiced Ducky had died. Imagine having to channel all that grief into your work. It makes the goodbye in the movie even more devastating when you know the real-life tragedy behind it. These films were marketed as children's movies, but they were packed with so much emotional weight that they ended up leaving deep scars on an entire generation. Poltergeist. This one haunted me for years. The second one, especially with that bathroom mirror scene, I couldn't open a bathroom cabinet for a long time after that. And let's not even talk about that priest. He was straight out of a nightmare. Old Yeller. Old Yeller wrecked me as a kid. Just when you think you found the perfect dog, they go and break your heart by shooting him. What a way to scar a whole generation of kids. I'll never forget that ending. A friend's Old Yeller story. Years ago, a buddy told me a story about another friend of ours. This guy got absolutely hammered one night, raided the kitchen, and drank all the breast milk his wife had pumped for the baby. He was sobbing while watching Old Yeller, crying about the dog, and didn't even realize he'd just downed all the breast milk. His wife was furious, but all he could say was, "They killed that poor dog." Every time I hear about Old Yeller, I think of that story and just lose it. Courage the Cowardly Dog. Oh man, Courage the Cowardly Dog was nightmare fuel for kids. That show really pushed boundaries, creepy characters, eerie settings, and those unsettling storylines. It's no wonder so many of us have childhood trauma thanks to that show. Return the Slab. I showed my kid Rocco's Modern Life the other day, and halfway through, he turns to me and says, "This explains why you're the way you are." Accurate little jerk, but honestly, nothing tops Return the Slab from Courage, pure nightmare fuel. The Shining? The Shining, as a teenage boy, was a real trip. One second, I was like, ooh, nice, when the woman steps out of the tub, and the next, I was like, what the fuck? That movie messes with your head so badly, and that moment, scarring. Event Horizon. I remember watching Event Horizon and not being able to sleep for a week. That movie was something else. Dark, disturbing, and just completely unsettling. Bridge to Terabithia. I still pretend Bridge to Terabithia doesn't exist because of how much it traumatized me. I watched it as a kid, expecting some fun fantasy adventure, but nope, it hit me like a truck. I wasn't ready for that level of heartbreak. The Ring. The Ring gave me a lifelong fear of long hair. Seriously, that scene where she crawls out of the TV messed me up for good. I can't look at long hair the same way ever again. Coraline. Coraline was one of those movies that sneaks up on you. It's supposed to be a kid's movie, but it was terrifying. The Other Mother and those button eyes? That's the stuff of nightmares. Final Destination. Not me, but my sister was seriously traumatized by Final Destination. We casually watched it one Sunday afternoon on TV when we were like 8 years old, and it messed her up for years. She'd write things on small pieces of paper like, "We're all gonna die," and stop walking out of nowhere because she had a feeling. It was eerie. Logger Trucks and Final Destination. I know it was the second Final Destination movie, but to this day, I still switch lanes if I'm behind a logging truck. That scene sticks with you forever. Millennial shared trauma. Honestly, avoiding logging trucks feels like a collective millennial experience thanks to Final Destination. We all learned a valuable lesson that day. Don't trust those trucks. Kazam! Kazam, starring Shaquille O'Neal. Need I say more? The acting was so bad it was traumatizing in its own special way. I'll never look at a boombox the same way again. It. I have to laugh now, but it messed me up for years. That clown? No thanks. Pennywise made me terrified of drains and sewers well into adulthood. Sad animal movies. I was born in the mid-1980s, so every single sad animal movie from that time pretty much traumatized me. Bambi, Old Yeller, Homeward Bound, Black Beauty, The Lion King. They made us love those animals and then killed them dramatically. I still remember watching Old Yeller on a school bus coming back from the Toronto Zoo. Talk about emotional whiplash. The Exorcist. The Exorcist messed me up. I couldn't even sleep properly for weeks after watching it. That head spin, the voice, still gives me chills just thinking about it. Mommy Dearest. Mommy Dearest, and that infamous coat hanger scene. How is this even a thing? My mom made me watch it when I was way too young, and I've been haunted ever since. The Lion King. When Simba lost his dad in The Lion King, I was wrecked. Every single time. I couldn't handle it as a kid, and honestly, it still hits hard as an adult. The Green Mile. My mom had me watching The Green Mile way too young. I'll never forget that scene with John Coffey in the chair. It was so heavy and emotional. What was she thinking letting me watch that at 10 years old? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Okay, everyone's talking about actual scary movies, but mine was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. When Violet turned into a blueberry, I had to leave the room. That scene was horrifying. Fire in the Sky. Fire in the Sky absolutely terrified me. I was so scared I was going to get abducted by aliens for the longest time after watching that. Every time I looked up at the sky, I got nervous. The Brave Little Toaster. The Brave Little Toaster was strangely terrifying. That movie has some seriously dark undertones for a kid's film. The air conditioner scene? I still think about it. Deep Blue Sea. Deep Blue Sea had me on edge with those super smart sharks. Like, who decided to make killer sharks work as a team? On the bright side, I've gotten a lot better at making scrambled eggs thanks to the tension that movie left me with every time I'm in the kitchen. Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street ruined my sleep as a kid. Freddy Krueger haunted my dreams for years. I'd lie in bed, terrified to even close my eyes. War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds was intense. The alien invasion had me seriously questioning if we were all doomed. To this day, I still get chills thinking about the sounds those alien machines made. Coraline. Coraline at 6 years old? Yeah, that's a recipe for nightmares. I was terrified for weeks. The other mother possessing my little sister in my dreams? It was like a horror movie in my head every night. I don't know how that movie is rated PG, honestly. I think it was borderline PG-13 for sure. The Secret of NIMH. The Secret of NIMH was another unexpected childhood horror. I watched it when I was 4, and the rats with their glowing red eyes freaked me out so much. It felt like a dark, twisted fever dream. Planet of the Apes. The original Planet of the Apes messed with me when Taylor found out what happened to Dodge. It was such a disturbing revelation to 5-year-old me. I had no idea how to process it. Beneath the Planet of the Apes. The sequel, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, was even worse. The mutants taking off their masks? That was some of the most horrifying stuff I'd ever seen as a kid. Human Centipede? Human Centipede as a kid? That's next-level traumatic. I'm still processing it as an adult, so imagining being a kid and seeing that, wow. Child's Play? Never even saw Child's Play, but the movie cover alone was enough to give me nightmares for weeks. Just seeing Chucky's face sent my imagination spiraling. Fox and the Hound. Fox and the Hound just wrecked me emotionally. The whole idea of losing a best friend like that? Too much for young me to handle. Signs had me convinced that aliens were lurking around every corner. To this day, cornfields freak me out, and I always make sure not to have my back to a door. That movie got under my skin in ways I didn't expect. Poltergeist. I was 12 when I watched Poltergeist, and it was like a switch flipped in my brain. That clown doll scene haunts me to this day. Every creaky noise in my house feels like it's connected to the supernatural. The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense was a psychological gut punch. I remember thinking, is this what life is like? Just constantly seeing ghosts? It made every shadow in the house feel alive. Never-ending Story. Never-ending Story. The Artax scene. Just Artax! It's a moment that stays with you forever, right in the gut. I'm still not over it, and I probably never will be. Truman Show. The Truman Show really messed with my perception of reality for a while. I was paranoid that everyone around me was secretly part of some elaborate show, and I was the last one to figure it out. Mars Attacks. Mars Attacks wasn't even the movie, just the asterisk trailer asterisk traumatized me. I was so young, and then I started getting visited by aliens in my sleep paralysis for months afterward. I didn't know what sleep paralysis was either. I legit thought I was being abducted by aliens. Later, I even thought I had psychic powers or was going crazy. The scene with the innocent dove still makes me sick to my stomach. I can't even handle watching people play violent video games like Grand Theft Auto. Something about that meaningless violence just turns my stomach inside out. Matrix. The asterisk Matrix asterisk legit kept me awake for 2 days straight. I remember lying there, mind racing, asking myself over and over, but how can I know I'm not in a matrix right now? It was such a trip, questioning reality like that at such a young age. Even now, years later, I can't definitively say we're not living in a simulation, but the existential crisis has thankfully passed. These days, I've made peace with it. If we are in a matrix, I guess I just don't care anymore. Skyrocket. Pretty sure we asterisk our asterisk in the matrix though, because every time I think about something, I get targeted ads for it. Seriously, how do they know? They keep trying to sell me blue pills, which feels a little asterisk too asterisk on the nose. Sin City. I was way too young to watch asterisk Sin City asterisk when I first saw it. I didn't understand any English at the time, so all I had were these haunting visuals to go off of. That glasses-wearing character, Kevin? Yeah, he freaked me out asterisk so asterisk much that I ended up having nightmares about him. In the nightmare, he'd just stand there, grinning with those creepy glasses on. I didn't even know what he was saying, but that didn't make it any less terrifying. The Ring. Asterisk The Ring. Oh man, there was something about that tape, the cursed video, the phone call, all of it. That movie just burrowed into my mind and stayed there. Even years after watching it, anytime I saw static on a TV, I'd freak out and think that girl with the long, wet hair was going to crawl out of the screen and come for me. The Secret of NIMH. Asterisk. The Secret of NIMH. Asterisk was like a fever dream of terror for me. I remember every time I rewatched it, I'd be simultaneously scared out of my mind and completely unable to turn it off. Those rats with their glowing red eyes, the whole dark, mysterious tone of the movie, it was so creepy but so captivating. I loved it and feared it all at once. The Dark Crystal. Asterisk. The Dark Crystal. There was just something asterisk off asterisk about it, right? It was unsettling in a way I couldn't quite put into words back then. Those Skeksis creatures were terrifying, and the dark, eerie atmosphere of the whole movie left me feeling disturbed every time I watched it. Final Destination. Asterisk Final Destination asterisk left me constantly paranoid that death was just around the corner, waiting to strike in some bizarre, convoluted way. Every time I got in a car or saw something seemingly harmless, I thought, this is it. This is how it's going to happen. That movie messed me up for asterisk years asterisk. The Blob? Oh, asterisk. The Blob asterisk was a whole different level of terrifying for me, mostly because my dad thought it would be hilarious to let me watch it at 4 years old and then feed me red Jell-O afterward, saying it was the Blob coming to get me. Traumatizing. Now, over 30 years later, I asterisk still asterisk can't watch that movie without getting creeped out. Thanks, Dad. Gremlins. Asterisk Gremlins asterisk might have seemed fun at first, but those little monsters terrified me. I couldn't even look at a stuffed animal without wondering if it was going to suddenly turn into a gremlin and attack me. Night after night, I'd lie awake, thinking I'd hear that eerie gremlin laughter coming from the shadows. RoboCop? I know asterisk RoboCop asterisk was supposed to be this cool action movie, but it traumatized me as a kid. The violence, the body horror, it was way more than I could handle at the time. Watching someone get turned into a robot after being basically torn apart? Yeah, no thanks. Return to Oz. Asterisk Return to Oz asterisk. I still can't believe my mom thought that would be a good movie for an 8-year-old. She rented it for me one day when I was homesick, thinking, oh, a sequel to asterisk Wizard of Oz asterisk, how nice. Yeah, not so much. Those Wheelers were the stuff of nightmares. The whole movie was bizarre and terrifying, and it's still one of the scariest things I remember watching as a kid.